Rain hit the small window like thousands of tiny fingers. The old clock on the wall ticked loudly in the silence. Inside a narrow kitchen, a young man named Adam sat at the table. His hands were shaking, and his shirt was wet with sweat and rain. A single paper lay in front of him. It was a letter. His eyes moved over the words again and again, but his mind felt numb. He had made a mistake, a big mistake, and now his whole life was about to change. Adam's heart beat fast. He could hear it louder than the clock. Outside, cars splashed through puddles. Somewhere far away, a train horn sounded. But in Adam's head there was only one thought. How did I do this? How did I ruin everything? He wanted to tear the letter into pieces, but he also wanted to read it again. The letter was like a mirror showing him his own guilt. His apartment smelled of old coffee and wet clothes. It was once a bright place, but now it felt like a cage. He had always loved the rain, but tonight it felt like the sky was punishing him. He pushed his chair back and stood up. His legs felt heavy. He went to the small window and looked out. The city lights were blurry through the rain. People with umbrellas walked fast. They looked free. Adam felt like he was sinking. 3 months ago, he had been a different person. He had walked through the same streets with hope in his eyes. He had smiled at strangers. He had believed in his future. But tonight, as thunder rolled above the rooftops, he saw a stranger in the glass. His own face looked older, tired, broken. His hands were dirty from work and from secrets. His phone on the table kept buzzing. He didn't answer. He couldn't. He remembered the day when it all began. It had been a sunny morning. He had left his small town with a small bag and a big dream. He had come to the city to study, to work, and to build a better life. People had told him he was smart, hardworking, honest. But the city was hard. Jobs were rare. Bills were many. He had taken a job in a restaurant washing dishes. It was not his dream, but it was a start. He told himself it was only for a short time. He would save money, study at night, and soon he would move on. But dreams are fragile. Sometimes one small choice can break them. Adam had made a choice. It seemed small at the time. A friend at work had offered him an easy way to earn extra money. Just sign this paper, the friend had said. It's nothing. Everyone does it. Adam had hesitated, but he needed the money. His rent was late. His mother back home needed medicine. He signed. He didn't read everything. He trusted his friend. That was his mistake. Now, weeks later, the letter on his table told him the truth. The easy way was not easy. It was illegal. His name was on papers he had never seen. His signature was under numbers he didn't understand. The police were looking into it. If he didn't act, he could lose his job, his visa, his freedom. He could go to jail. The friend had disappeared. Adam was alone with the consequences. Lightning flashed outside. For a moment the whole room was white. Adam closed his eyes. He saw his mother's face. He saw his little sister waving when he had left home. He had promised them he would do well. He had promised to be good. Tears filled his eyes. He wanted to go back in time, to refuse the paper, to keep his hands clean. But time only moves forward. He sat again at the table. The clock ticked. He took a deep breath. He wiped his face with his sleeve. Somewhere inside his heart, under the fear and shame, there was still a small voice. It whispered, "It is not over. You can still fight. You can still make it right." Adam didn't know how yet, but he knew he had to try. The mistake had changed his life, but maybe it could also teach him who he really was. The rain kept falling. The letter lay between his hands like a test he had to pass. Adam looked at the window one more time. He saw the blurry city lights. He saw himself. He whispered, "I will not give up." The words felt strange but strong. He folded the letter and put it in his pocket. His heart was still heavy, but now there was also a spark of courage. The night was dark, but somewhere beyond the clouds the sun was waiting. Adam walked slowly through the narrow street behind the restaurant. The rain had stopped, but the ground was still wet. Small puddles reflected the neon lights of shops. He pulled his jacket tighter around his shoulders. He felt cold inside, not just outside. His mind went back to the boy he used to be. Adam had grown up in a small village surrounded by green fields and a slow river. His father had died when Adam was only 10 years old. His mother raised him and his little sister alone. She worked in a bakery from early morning until late at night. Even when she was tired, she smiled at Adam and said, "Study hard. Make a good life. Don't end up like me." Adam never forgot her words. He wanted to give her a better life, a warm house, a garden, and peace. As a boy, Adam loved to draw. He filled old notebooks with pictures of houses and cities. He dreamed of becoming an architect, someone who builds safe, beautiful places for people. He imagined designing schools and hospitals in poor towns. He believed he could change the world with bricks and hope. When other children played outside, Adam read books and watched videos about buildings. He believed his talent and hard work would be enough. But there was also fear inside him. He feared failure. He feared poverty. He feared becoming stuck in the same village with no chance to grow. At night he would lie awake and think about his mother's tired hands. He promised himself he would escape and make her proud. This promise was like a fire in his heart. It pushed him to study, to work, to move forward even when things were hard. When Adam finished high school, he won a small scholarship to study in the city. It was not enough to cover all costs, but it was a start. He hugged his mother and sister and left with a bag of clothes and a head full of dreams. The train ride to the city felt like a new life. He looked out the window at the fields disappearing behind him. He told himself, "I will make it. I will not waste this chance." The city was big, loud, and fast. Tall buildings blocked the sky. People moved like rivers, never stopping. At first Adam felt small, but he also felt excited. He rented a tiny room with a broken window. He took classes during the day and worked at night to pay rent. He washed dishes in a busy restaurant. The job was hard. The manager shouted. The water was hot. His hands became red and dry. But Adam kept telling himself, "This is temporary. This is just the beginning." He still drew in his free time. He still dreamed. Sometimes, after a long shift, he sat at the kitchen table with his notebooks and made sketches. He imagined tall buildings, open parks, safe playgrounds. He imagined his mother sitting in a warm room, drinking tea, smiling because her son had succeeded. These pictures kept him alive. But the fear never left completely. Bills came every month. Prices went up. His scholarship was small. Some nights he ate only bread and tea. He worried about his mother's health. He worried about his sister's school fees. He worked extra shifts. He sent money home when he could. The weight on his shoulders grew heavier. Still, Adam believed he could handle it. He believed that if he just worked hard and stayed honest, things would get better. That was his dream and his shield. He never thought one decision could break everything. He never thought trust could turn into a trap. Now, walking in the wet street, Adam remembered all this. He remembered his drawings, his promises, his hopes. He felt pain in his chest. He had not only betrayed himself, he had betrayed the boy he used to be. He stopped under a streetlight and looked at his hands. They were strong from work but tired from fear. He whispered to himself, "I wanted to build houses, not destroy my life." The night air was cool. A bus passed, spraying water on the sidewalk. People laughed somewhere in the distance. Adam stood still. Inside him, the dream was not completely dead. It was hurt, but it was still there. He could still see the little boy drawing houses in old notebooks. He could still hear his mother's voice. The fear was strong, but the dream was stronger once. He wondered if it could be strong again. He took a deep breath and started walking. His shoes splashed in the puddles. Each step felt heavy, but also like a promise. He would not let this mistake define him forever. He had a dream. He had a fear. Maybe both could guide him now. It had started with a simple favor at the restaurant. One night, after the dinner rush, Adam was cleaning pans in the hot kitchen when his coworker, a man named Kareem, leaned close to him. Kareem was older, confident, always with extra money in his pocket. He said quietly, "I know a way you can earn more. Quick money. No one gets hurt. You just sign a paper." Adam frowned. "What kind of paper?" Kareem smiled. "Just some delivery papers. My cousin has a business." He needs signatures for supplies. The boss doesn't care. Everyone does it. Adam shook his head at first. He had always been careful. He did not like lies. But that night he returned to his small room and found 3 bills waiting on his bed: rent, school fees for his sister, a doctor's note for his mother. He sat with his head in his hands. He felt trapped. He thought of Kareem's easy smile. He thought, it's only a signature. It's nothing. One time. The next day he signed. Kareem gave him an envelope with cash. It felt heavy like guilt. Weeks passed. Adam kept working, kept studying. He tried to forget the paper. But then strange letters began to arrive. Big words he did not understand. Numbers he had never seen. Kareem stopped coming to work. The manager asked Adam questions he could not answer. One afternoon 2 men in suits came into the kitchen and showed badges. They asked for him. They asked about the papers. Adam's hands shook as he wiped them on his apron. I don't know, he said. I only wash dishes. That night he sat on his bed with a notice from the police. It said his name was on fraudulent invoices worth thousands. It said he could be charged with a crime. His scholarship could be cancelled. His visa could be taken. He could go to jail. Adam read the words until they blurred. He felt the room spin. He wanted to run home, but there was no home to run to. He called Kareem's phone. No answer. He went to Kareem's flat. Empty. Neighbors said Kareem had left the country. Adam stood on the street, holding his bag, feeling cold even though the sun was hot. He realized he had been used. His trust had been stolen. His dream was in danger. He tried to explain to the restaurant manager. The man listened and then shook his head. I cannot keep you here, he said. The police came. This is bad for business. Adam lost his job the same day he lost his hope. He walked out of the back door with his apron in his hands. The city looked bigger and louder than ever. People walked past him without seeing him. He felt invisible. He went to his small room. The landlord knocked and asked for rent. Adam had no money. He packed his few clothes into a bag and left before the landlord could throw him out. He walked the streets until his feet hurt. He thought of calling his mother, but what would he say? I made a mistake. I lost everything. He could not break her heart. That night he slept at a bus station. He used his bag as a pillow. The light stayed on all night. The floor was cold. He watched people come and go. He thought of the boy drawing houses in old notebooks. He thought of his promise. He felt shame like a heavy blanket. He whispered, I ruined it. I ruined everything. The next morning he went to the university office. He tried to explain. The woman behind the desk listened, but her eyes were cold. Your scholarship is suspended until the investigation is complete, she said. You cannot attend classes. Adam nodded. He wanted to beg, but no words came. He walked out into the sunlight. It felt harsh and empty. Students passed by laughing. He felt like a ghost. By evening he was standing on a bridge, looking at the dark water below. Cars roared past behind him. He gripped the railing and closed his eyes. He felt the wind on his face. For a moment he imagined letting go, falling, ending the fear. But then he heard a child laugh somewhere behind him. He opened his eyes. He thought of his mother's tired hands. He thought of his sister's smile. He stepped back from the edge. No, he whispered. Not like this. He sat on a bench and watched the water. The sky turned orange, then purple. Lights came on in the buildings across the river. He was broke, accused, alone. His dream was broken. But somewhere under all the pain there was still a tiny spark. He did not know how, but he wanted to fight. He wanted to fix his mistake. He wanted to be the person he had promised to be. The week after the suspension felt like walking through a dark tunnel. Adam had no job, no room, no classes. He stayed at the bus station during the night and spent the days wandering the city, looking for something he could do. He had only a few coins in his pocket. Sometimes he bought bread. Sometimes he didn't eat at all. But he kept walking. He refused to call home. He refused to let his mother hear the weakness in his voice. On the 4th day he found a notice on a cafe window. Help needed, cleaning shift, night work. He stepped inside. The manager was a tired woman with glasses. She looked at his torn bag and sunken eyes. Have you done this before? She asked. Yes, Adam lied. She nodded. Come tonight. That night at midnight, while others slept, Adam scrubbed floors, washed windows, emptied bins. The smell of coffee mixed with bleach. His back ached, his hands cracked, but he did not stop. He needed the money. He needed a roof. The cafe paid little, but it was cash. He used it to rent a mattress in a shared basement with 3 other men. It was damp and smelled of mold, but at least it was a place to sleep. He worked nights and spent the mornings in libraries. Even though the university had suspended him, the library was still open. He sat at the far corner, reading law books, contract guides, anything about fraud and invoices. He tried to understand what had happened to him. He wanted to be ready to defend himself. Every day was a sacrifice. He walked long distances to save bus fare. He ate cheap noodles. He wore the same shirt again and again. Sometimes he fell asleep over the books. Sometimes he woke with tears on the pages. But he kept going. The spark inside him had turned into a small flame. I will clear my name. I will finish my studies. I will build again. One afternoon, as he was leaving the library, he saw a poster on the wall, Free Legal Clinic for Low-Income Workers. He tore off a slip with a phone number. That evening he called from a payphone. A soft voice answered. Her name was Lisa. She was a young lawyer volunteering at the clinic. He told her his story in broken words. She listened without interrupting. Then she said, "Come tomorrow. Bring every paper you have." The next day he arrived with a plastic bag full of letters, notices, and his scholarship documents. Lisa spread them on the table. She frowned, then looked at him. "You were a victim," she said. "They used your name. You didn't create the invoices." Adam felt a tremor of hope. "Can you help me?" he asked. She smiled. "We'll try. But it will take time. You will need patience." And so began a long routine. Nights at the cafe cleaning floors. Mornings at the library studying. Afternoons at the clinic filling forms, giving statements, collecting evidence. Lisa guided him, but she warned him, "You must work hard. You must stay honest. No shortcuts." Adam nodded. He knew now what shortcuts cost. Weeks turned into months. His body grew thinner, but his eyes grew sharper. He learned about laws, about rights, about contracts. He wrote letters to the university, to the police, to the scholarship board. He explained everything. Some never replied. Some sent cold answers. But he kept writing. He refused to disappear. He also started helping at the clinic, cleaning tables, making tea, even translating for workers who did not speak English. Lisa noticed. "Why do you help?" she asked one evening. He shrugged. "Because someone helped me." She smiled. That's how change begins. The manager at the cafe offered him extra shifts. Adam took them all. He saved every coin in a jar under his mattress. He stopped buying small pleasures. No coffee, no sweets, no new clothes. He worked and studied. Some nights his hands shook with exhaustion. Some mornings his eyes burned. But he remembered the boy drawing houses and he kept moving. One Sunday, while cleaning the cafe kitchen, he found a lost wallet under a chair. Inside was a large sum of cash. For a moment the old temptation returned. This could solve a week of food. This could pay rent. He closed his eyes. Then he walked to the counter and gave the wallet to the manager. "Someone forgot this," he said. The manager looked surprised. Later that evening a man returned, grateful, and gave Adam a small tip. It was not much, but it felt like a medal. Adam whispered to himself, "No more mistakes." By the end of the 3rd month, Lisa came to him with good news. "The police have dropped the charges," she said. "They believe you now. Kareem's name is on the real documents. They are looking for him." Adam felt his knees weaken. He sat down and covered his face. He did not cry, he just breathed deep and long. He was free. But the university still had to decide. The scholarship board still had to meet. Lisa said, "We will appeal. We will show them your work." Adam nodded. "I'm ready." He walked back to his basement room that night under the stars. The city still looked big, but he felt taller. He had lost everything, but he had not lost himself. His hands were rough, his clothes were worn, but his heart was steadier. He had learned something powerful in the months of sacrifice, that even when you fall, you can choose to stand up again. The next morning, Adam woke up before dawn. The basement room was cold, but for the first time in months, the weight on his chest felt lighter. He walked out into the street, the city still quiet, and bought a small cup of tea. The sky above was turning from black to soft gray. He stood there, hands wrapped around the warm paper cup, and whispered, "Thank you." It was not a prayer exactly. It was a breath of hope. Lisa's news had been like a key. The police no longer saw him as guilty. Kareem's name was on the real documents now. Adam's name was clearing slowly, like clouds moving from the sun. He still had no job except the cafe cleaning, no real home, no scholarship, but inside something was different. He was no longer hiding. He was no longer just surviving. He was preparing. He went to the legal clinic that afternoon and found Lisa already there with a pile of papers. "We have another meeting with the university board next week," she said. "They want to hear from you directly." Adam felt his throat tighten. "What should I say?" She smiled. "The truth. Tell them your story, the work you've done, the evidence we collected. Let them see you." That night at the cafe, as he mopped the floor, Adam thought about what he would say. He imagined the board members, their suits, their pens, their cold faces. He imagined telling them how he had cleaned floors at night while reading law books in the morning, how he had refused to give up. He imagined telling them about his mother, about his dream of building safe houses for poor families. The picture in his mind grew clearer, stronger. Hope did not come as a big victory. It came in small drops, like rain on dry soil. A regular customer at the cafe started talking to him, asking why he always looked tired. Adam told a little of his story. The man gave him a business card. "I'm an architect," he said. "When you finish your studies, call me. We need young people with passion." Adam slipped the card into his pocket like a treasure. Another day at the clinic, an older worker he had helped with forms brought him a sandwich. "For you," the man said shyly. "You help us. We help you." Adam thanked him. It was only bread and cheese, but it tasted like friendship. Lisa also noticed the change. "You smile more now," she said one evening. He shrugged. I'm coming back." She nodded. "You are." In the basement room, he pinned a piece of paper to the wall above his mattress. On it he wrote, "Stand, learn, build." It was not a plan yet, but it was a direction. Every night before sleep he looked at it. As the day of the university board meeting approached, Adam prepared like a man training for a race. He practiced speaking in front of a mirror in the public library bathroom. He wrote notes, then threw them away, then wrote new ones. He borrowed a clean shirt from one of his roommates. He even polished his old shoes until they shone faintly. The morning of the meeting, Lisa met him outside the building. "Ready?" she asked. He took a deep breath. "Ready." Together they walked in. The hall smelled of paper and polish. The board sat behind a long table. Faces he had once known looked at him now with a mix of curiosity and caution. He told his story slowly, clearly. He did not cry. He did not beg. He spoke of the mistake, of the false invoices, of Kareem. He showed the documents. He told them how he had been cleaning at night and studying by day. He told them about his dream of building houses for poor families. He told them he still wanted to finish his studies, not for a piece of paper, but to do something that mattered. When he finished, there was silence. Some board members looked at their notes. One woman adjusted her glasses. Finally, the chairperson spoke. "Thank you, Mr. Adam. We will review your case and inform you." Outside, in the cold air, Adam felt drained but also strangely light. "I did it," he whispered. Lisa smiled. "Yes, you did. Now we wait." That week of waiting was long, but hope had taken root. He walked to work humming under his breath. He bought a second-hand notebook and began sketching ideas for small houses. He wrote down materials, costs, drawings. He didn't know if they were realistic, but it felt good to dream again with open eyes. One evening, as he was cleaning the cafe, the manager called him into the office. "You've been working hard," she said. "Do you want to take on the morning shift too? More hours, more pay." Adam accepted. It meant less sleep but more savings. He saw it as another step forward. He began to save a little more each week. He even sent a small envelope of money to his mother. In her reply letter she wrote, "I knew you were strong. I'm proud of you." Adam read it 3 times and then folded it carefully into his notebook. Hope also gave him energy to help others. At the clinic he stayed longer, explaining forms to new workers, telling them not to give up. "Even if you fall, you can stand again," he said. They looked at him as if he was older, wiser. By the end of the month, a letter arrived from the university. Lisa opened it with him. Inside were only a few lines, but they burned bright. "We have decided to reinstate your scholarship. You may return next term." Adam closed his eyes. For a moment he could not breathe. Then he laughed, a sound he had not heard from himself in a long time. Lisa laughed too. "You're going back," she said. "Yes," he whispered. "I'm going back." The city still felt big, the basement still damp, the cafe still smelled of bleach. But now the tunnel had a light. Adam had a second chance. Hope was no longer a whisper. It was a voice inside him saying, "Keep going. This is just the beginning." The reinstatement letter was like a sunrise after a long winter. Adam held it in his hands every night before sleep. But he also knew the real test was not over. Returning to the university would not erase the debt, the long months of work, or the stigma of his past mistake. People would remember. Some would still doubt him. And there was one more obstacle waiting, bigger than he had imagined. 2 weeks before the new term began, Adam received an email from the scholarship office. It said that, because of the delay and the controversy, the scholarship would cover only tuition fees. He would need to pay for housing, books, and living expenses himself. The numbers at the bottom of the email were large, far more than what he had saved from the cafe. Adam stared at the screen until his vision blurred. This was the big test. He could return to the university only if he found a way to support himself. Otherwise, the second chance would slip away. That night he lay awake on his mattress in the basement, listening to the drip of water from a pipe. He thought of quitting the cafe and working full-time, but then he would have no time to study. He thought of taking a loan, but his credit was ruined. He thought of asking his mother, but she barely had enough to live on. His chest felt heavy, like a stone pressing down. For a moment the old voice of despair returned. Maybe you should stop. Maybe you were wrong to hope. But another voice rose inside him, stronger now. You've come too far. Don't give up. He sat up, took out his notebook with the sketches of small houses, and stared at the word he had written above them, build. He didn't know how, but he felt he had to build something, not just houses in the future, but a solution now. The next day at the cafe, he asked his manager if he could work both morning and night shifts. She frowned. It's too much, Adam. You'll collapse. He said quietly, I have no choice. She sighed. I can give you mornings and some afternoons, but not nights. We need you awake. It was more hours, but still not enough. At the legal clinic, Lisa noticed the dark circles under his eyes. What happened? She asked. He showed her the email. She read it and closed her eyes. I'm sorry. I didn't know they'd cut the stipend. Adam shrugged. It's okay. I'll find a way. She hesitated. I might have an idea. There's a small community center near the south side. They need someone to teach English to migrant workers in the evenings. It doesn't pay much, but it's something, and it would look good on your record. Adam thought about it. It meant working mornings at the cafe, afternoons at the university, and evenings at the center. It sounded impossible. But then he remembered the nights in the basement, studying with his eyes burning. He had survived that. He could survive this too. He nodded slowly. I'll do it. The following weeks were a blur. He woke before dawn, worked at the cafe until noon, rushed to the university for classes, then took the bus to the community center to teach English. He returned to the basement long after midnight, his clothes smelling of coffee and chalk. He slept a few hours and started again. His hands grew rough, his back ached, but he kept going. At the community center, he met faces that reminded him of his own past, tired men and women, eyes full of worry but also hunger to learn. When he taught them basic words, when they managed to say a sentence in English, their smiles lit up the room. It gave him energy. You're a good teacher, one woman said. He smiled weakly. I'm learning too. Midway through the term, an unexpected email arrived from the dean's office. They had reviewed his case and his work at the community center. They invited him to speak at a public forum about resilience and second chances. Adam stared at the screen. Speaking at a forum meant facing not just board members but students, teachers, journalists. It meant exposing his mistake to the whole campus. It could either repair his reputation or destroy it completely. That night he walked for hours through the city, thinking. The winter wind cut through his jacket. He passed the tall buildings of the university, their windows glowing like watchful eyes. He remembered the day security had walked him out, the whispers, the shame. Now they wanted him to return not just as a student but as a speaker. It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. Lisa found him sitting on the library steps. You don't have to do it, she said softly. You've already proved yourself. He shook his head. If I hide now, the mistake will always define me. If I speak, maybe it becomes just one part of my story. She studied his face. Then speak. He prepared for the forum like a soldier for battle. He wrote and rewrote his speech. He practiced in empty classrooms, his voice echoing off the walls. He asked the community center students to listen and tell him where he was unclear. He told them, if I can stand in front of them, you can stand in front of anyone. They cheered him. The day of the forum arrived. The hall was full. Students whispered as he walked to the podium. Journalists held pens. Cameras blinked red. Adam's palms were sweating. He placed his notes on the stand, looked out at the sea of faces, and took a breath. I am Adam, he began. 2 years ago, I made a mistake that almost destroyed my life. As he spoke, silence spread through the hall. He told them about Kareem, the invoices, the basement, the cafe, the nights of study, the community center. He told them about hope. He did not excuse himself. He did not blame. He simply told the truth. When he finished, there was a pause. Then someone began to clap. The sound grew, filling the hall. Students stood. Even some of the professors joined. Adam felt a warmth rise in his chest. This was the decision point. He had stood up. Whatever happened next, he had faced his past. When Adam stepped down from the podium, his legs felt weak but his heart felt light. The clapping in the hall was still echoing behind him like waves. He walked through the corridor alone, past the tall windows where sunlight was falling in golden squares. For a long time he had imagined this place as a prison of shame. Now it felt like an open field. Outside the building, Lisa was waiting. She smiled and put a hand on his shoulder. You did it, she said. Adam nodded slowly. I spoke, he whispered. I didn't hide. They stood there for a moment, breathing the cool air. Around them, students passed by with books and phones, some looking at Adam with curiosity, some with respect. He was no longer a shadow. The weeks that followed were full of small but powerful changes. The university officially cleared his record. His scholarship was extended to cover some of his living costs again. His professors invited him back to classes with open arms. A few students from the audience came to thank him for his speech. One said, I was about to drop out. Your story made me stay. Another said, I made mistakes too. You gave me courage. At the cafe, his manager read the newspaper article about him. Our cleaner is famous now, she joked, and gave him a free coffee. At the community center, the migrant workers applauded when he walked in. They said, Teacher Adam, you spoke for all of us. Adam laughed, embarrassed but happy. For the first time in years, the smile on his face reached his eyes. But the most touching moment came one evening when he opened a letter from his mother. It was written in her careful handwriting. My son, I saw your photo in the newspaper. People in the village are talking about you. I always knew you were good. Your father would be proud. Adam pressed the paper to his forehead. Tears blurred the words. He whispered, I hope so. Even with these victories, life was not suddenly easy. Adam still worked long hours. He still lived in the basement for a while. Money was still tight. But his inner world had changed. He no longer saw himself as a victim of a mistake. He saw himself as a builder of his life, of others' hope. The sketches of small houses in his notebook became clearer and more detailed. He began turning them into a real plan for a future project: small, low-cost houses for families with nowhere to live. At the end of the term, the dean called him into the office. "We have a new initiative," the dean said. "We want to support students who combine study with community work. Would you like to lead a pilot program?" Adam felt a surge of energy. "Yes," he said without hesitation. It was not just a job. It was a chance to make the path easier for others. Months passed. Adam balanced his classes, the cafe, the community center, and now the new program. He was tired but fulfilled. Each time he spoke to a new student or worker about resilience, he felt the circle completing. The boy who once fell was now helping others stand. On the last day of his final year, he walked across the stage to receive his degree. The hall was full again. This time the clapping was not just polite. It was thunderous. In the front row, Lisa waved. In the balcony, he saw his mother, her hands pressed together, tears on her cheeks. Adam held up the degree but also held her gaze. He mouthed, "Thank you." After the ceremony, he didn't go to a party. Instead, he went back to the community center. The migrant workers had decorated a small room with balloons. On the wall they had written in uneven letters, "Congratulations, Teacher Adam." He laughed and hugged them. "We did this together," he said. Later that night he sat on the steps outside, looking at the city lights. The same city that had once seemed like a maze of dead ends now looked like a map of possibilities. He thought about the mistake that had started it all. It had been painful, humiliating, almost destroying him. Yet without it he would not have met Lisa, the workers, the center. He would not have discovered his strength. He would not have understood what it meant to build not just houses but lives. He took out his old notebook. On the first page, under the faded word "stand," learn, build, he added a new line: "Help others to stand." He closed the notebook and smiled. The story of Adam spread quietly beyond the campus. A small newspaper wrote about him again. A local charity contacted him to design a housing project. An architect, the man from the cafe, called to offer mentorship. Doors that had once been closed were now opening, one by one. Adam knew his journey was only beginning. Mistakes would still happen. Struggles would still come. But he had learned something he would never forget. A mistake can break you, but it can also shape you. It can be the stone you trip on, or the stone you step up on. The choice is yours. As the night breeze touched his face, Adam stood up and walked down the street. The city was full of people making mistakes, falling, rising. He wanted to find them, teach them, build with them. He wanted to turn his own story into a bridge for others. He walked with steady steps, no longer a shadow, but a man carrying light.